end up with garbage. Marcus strafes like he's playing hopscotch, which makes the movement untenable, leading you to stay in one cover for an entire gunfight, which is where you discover how awful the gunplay is. The crosshairs are horrible and have a circle at the center which must be lined up before you fire for the highest accuracy, and it's entirely possible to die waiting for them to do so. Not that accuracy really matters, the guns have mostly insane recoil and headshots are inconsistent kills anyways. The melee works, but you're rarely ever in a position to use it because the supernatural enemies kill you instantly if you're in range, and you're typically fighting 5 or more people with guns. If you use your powers too much, the mannequin men appear and kill you, which could be interesting, but because everything else is so bad, just becomes frustrating because the powers are almost necessary to have a fair game experience. The stealth is just crouching. That's it. If you get spotted, the end. And you're going through all this for a story that doesn't make any sense because nothing is ever explained. Nothing is explained. But I had to find this out from a video on YouTube because I couldn't finish past Cure. In addition to everything I've already mentioned about this complete joke of a game, it also has bugs, like this one. Or the one that prevents you from progressing because a specific enemy will not move when he needs to.
A wrench? Why a wrench?
Because I only got one crowbar, and I have no intention to give it away.
Well, I got bad memories with crowbars anyways. Mitchell, by the way.
Joe. But everyone calls me Boston Joe.
Alright, Joe. Let's save your friends from spiders with vaginas.
Hunt Down the Freeman is a game taking place in the Half-Life universe about an HECU named Mitchell Shepard seeking revenge on Gordon Freeman. Not a terrible concept by any means, but it's a game that quickly balloons out of control and mutates into a poor man's Metal Gear Solid 5. It really says a lot about Hunt Down the Freeman that even I can draw this comparison, considering I haven't played The Phantom Pain. It's an experience that is more a collection of cinematics than it is a full game, but for all the wrong reasons. I'm a big advocate for games that are more story-driven, but the reason I make this remark is because the gameplay portions of this game are so outrageously unplayable that you likely see more cutscenes than you do gameplay. Not that you want to see the cutscenes, mind you, because they're dog shit, but my point is that there's something seriously wrong with your game when you spend a decent chunk of it flying through levels with commands that make you invisible to AI because the game is so poorly designed. The main problem with Freeman is how directionless it is. In sharp contrast to Valve's own titles, Hunt Down the Freeman is designed more like an open-world game than it is a linear shooter. Levels are enormous, and where you're actually supposed to go is usually a mystery, as if it's left up to interpretation. Because it's riddled with bugs, you're also constantly second-guessing yourself on how to proceed. The amount of times I asked myself whether I wasn't understanding what the game wanted me to do, or if I just needed to no-clip, was countless. Things just happen in this game, levels end with no real reason to, furthering the confusion. With the amount of cutscenes this game has, you'd think there'd be the ability to infer what you're supposed to be doing, but not really. The cutscenes are almost entirely independent of the gameplay. You could just watch the cutscenes and fully understand what's happening in them without the context of them being part of a game. To be fair, this isn't just on the horrendous level design, it's also how enemies spawn. The Combine appear to behave like idiots, but it's really just how they spawn into any given encounter that makes them appear brain dead. which is especially egregious given that part of this game takes place during the 7-hour war and you can just run past any synths you see. It's genuinely hard to criticize this game because it's barely a game. They created all these assets, but just putting a player and several enemies into a confined space does not make gameplay. There's nothing comprehensive about this game. What little it attempts falls flat on its face, likely due to a misunderstanding of Half-Life's design ideology and overall inexperience. In essence, it's baby's first video game, but with high production value. Something that's obvious in its story in addition to its gameplay. Hunt Down the Freeman story is a 14-year-old fan fiction realized in video game form. Its story, its characters, their designs, their dialogue, all exuded from the lens of a child or someone equally as impressionable. Mitchell is a cringe lord and the personification of teenage angst.
I always saw you as a hero after that day.
Hero? You're talking to a villain, my dear. The hero inside of me died many, many years ago when I was young.
Isn't every villain a hero in their own story?
Not this one.
This is only made more absurd by all the ridiculous tone shifts in the narrative, like the introduction of Colonel Q. There's also the unintentionally hilarious, like when Mitchell's self-fulfilling prophecy of everyone dying around him becomes apparent.
It's not a curse. You made a deal with the devil. Here, you have it.
There's also the infamous ending.
I can explain.
You lied to me.
That wasn't the deal. He told us Mitch, please. Betrayed.
Down this street.
Why?
Mitch, please. I can explain. You have my permission to die.
Wait, Stevenson won't be alone. You're prepared better knowing that.
No one else needs to die today, only
At the
him.
end of the day,
Who's his entourage? They gonna be packing?
to look at if
Ordinary people.
odd.
Once we scare them, they're gonna know we're serious. They won't lift a finger.
But because the
How do you define ordinary?
is appalling,
Porco rats who got him out of the
I had
can.
to just
They
stop
sell their own
everything
mothers
and
to save
look
their own
down at the
skins.
floor to
Just
get a
don't
stable
fire at them.
frame rate Because I was afraid the game would blue screen my
Want
computer
'em dead,
with how
why?
badly it was lagging.
That's not your concern.
Rather know what I'm getting into.
Stevenson murdered my wife. They convicted him, put him on death row. But the slime bag found a get out of jail free card over my dead fucking body.
Nothing to do but wait.
What's your name?
Unimportant.
Unimportant. The same thing they told me when I wanted to know his real name. The dirtbag who killed her. There they are! Step on it! Stay on him! Don't let him get away! Watch out! We can't lose him. Stop the damn car! Fuck! Brake, I said! Brake! This is it. Let's go. Stay close. I'm gonna blow the motherfucker to bits myself.
You fucking idiot! Fire!
Are you kidding me?
Unearthed Trail of Ibn Battuta is the quintessential amateur video game, to the point where you almost think it's a parody instead of a full game that you're meant to play and enjoy, a la Duty Calls. In Unearthed, you play as Discount Nathan Drake as you and your sister, who enjoys pleasuring invisible penises, try to find a long-lost treasure. Unearthed is like a game on fast forward. You arrive at a temple, do the simplest puzzles ever, do some obstacles, do more puzzles, fight someone, and shoot people, all in the span of 15 minutes. I think the cutscenes are actually longer than the gameplay segments, which says a lot because of how many systems they try to cram into this game. There's third-person shooting, melee, puzzles, running segments, and 2 driving segments. Of course, none of these are done particularly well because they're just too simple to have any complexity to engage the player with, and they're too cheap to wow the player with anything they haven't seen before. To be fair, I was certainly wowed when this game crashed 3 times for no reason, resetting my graphics settings. I was also wowed when I beat the game and realized that Troy Baker had done voice work for it. But most importantly, I was truly in awe when, after sitting through the credits and being dumped back into the main menu, I saw that this game had a zombies mode. Seriously, this game has a mode where you can choose any character, go to any map, and just shoot zombies. Why? Why not?
V, got a job for you. My client had a shitload of beta acid stolen. What's beta acid, you might wonder? Fuck if I know. But it's worth a lot, and our client wants it back. That's where you come in. Iron at the ready. More info attached.
Trying is not enough is what happens when you think you can make a better Silent Hill game than any of the ones Konami put out after 4, but then you realize you have no talent, and you also have no brain. Trying is not enough is a Silent Hill / Resident Evil inspired game without any, and I mean any, of the understanding those games have of their respective design. I remember none of the characters' names, nor do I care to, so I'll just say that husband is trying to find wife, but wife has mother who is entangled in
Did
strange
Okada give you the
events.
details?
The reason I'm so apathetic about this one in particular is because of how blatantly horrendous it is. The game is so reflective, you'll think you have an RTX card, characters look like freshly dug up corpses, and the voice acting is some of the worst I've ever heard.
Why?
So he can smell his own fear before he dies.
A couple of hours ago, the nurse
Nothing to
returned
do but wait.
for her scheduled treatment.
What's your name?
Huge wife wasn't there.
V.
And she was
Let me tell you something, V. That sack of filth took the life of someone I love. I can't live with the thought that... There they are! Step on it!
Explain to me right now what's going on. Gameplay-wise, Crying is somehow even worse than you'd think based on everything you've seen so far. It's a game that clearly wants to mimic the linearity and backtracking associated with the linearity of games like Resident Evil, but without any obstacles preventing them from triggering events that they shouldn't, that ultimately establish that linearity. Case in point, in this game, I activated a boss fight that I wasn't able to beat until much later just because I wandered into the space since the game is so damn directionless. Imagine if you could just walk into the Umbrella Labs beneath the Spencer Mansion in Resident Evil 1 and trigger the Tyrant fight, and all you have to fight fight him is your Beretta. That's the level of incompetence seen in Crying. Enemies would be easy to kill if not for the spastic aim of the character. The gun goes flying when he fires a single round, making it very difficult to conserve ammo. The game is so dark that certain paths to important routes can be obscured, making an already confusing map layout nearly impossible to navigate. And navigation is where the bulk of your time is spent because of how open the map is and how items are conveniently placed at opposite ends of where they need to be used. The main problem with this is that because the world is so open and grants so much freedom to the player, the contextual room sequencing that is meant to provide the player with an order of events is totally broken, and you have no clue what items you're supposed to use to trigger what
Break, I
events.
said! Break!
You better get used to running, because you're going to be doing a whole lot of it.
Let's go.
But don't forget to mute the game if you're playing it near anyone, because the running sounds like something you'd hear in an adult SFM animation.
Stay close. I'm gonna blow the motherfucker to bits myself. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna fucking kill him.
NCPD!
There's never
Stop
been a
right
game
there!
more emblematic of Steam's complete
Lieutenant
absence
Vasquez,
towards
NCPD,
quality control
stop right
and
there!
hunt down the Freeman.
You're protecting a
Only
murderer.
on Steam
Drop it
could
or
a
I
game
shoot.
so goddamn atrocious have seen the light of day,
Stop the killing.
and only Valve would allow someone to so
They're here to
brazenly
kill you.
desecrate their own
It's not their
intellectual
fault.
property the way
Shoot
this
the girl,
game does,
and our deal is dead.
continue to keep lying about it 2 years after the game released, even
all
when
shoot
said
holes in
lie
each other.
violates their own policy. There are incredible indie
can't
games
leave her
out
here.
there. Hunt
Media
Down the
vultures will
Freeman
be here
is
any
not
minute.
only not one of them,
doing?
it is
Stop!
undoubtedly
NCPD! Stay where you are and get that goddamn semi out of here! We take her with us.
What? Olga, we've got a situation.
developing a licensed
No
game
thanks.
is the equivalent
Just
of
be on
starting a
my-
marathon by
That suck
shooting
is outside
yourself in the
professional.
knee.
It was
You have
only
no
a
time, no money, and no passion. It's time to talk about the licensed games that fail to clear the lowest bar imaginable.
Get these up!
What the fuck you want?
Walking Dead Survival Instinct is just
Fucking
pathetic. There will be games after this that are equally or more unfinished. This game really each inexperienced and foolish that is currently seen in the public game or you think that alone will be the reason this game is so shit, but it is. In reality, nothing being done by the incompetent actors. Also, the double back constantly try to aim to be as boring and painful to play as possible, so no one actually completes it. In Survival Instinct, you play as Daryl Dixon, with the game serving as a prequel to the first season of The Walking Dead. And the immediate outstanding issue with this is that the game barely has any writing. It barely has cutscenes. Norman Reedus and Michael Rooker, who reprise their roles as Daryl and Merle respectively, are given nothing to do, and you can't even play as Merle, which will never cease to amaze me. So from the very beginning, you're basically whoever doing whatever, because the game forgot to have a story, and all its side characters are about as interesting as a bucket of cold piss. What remains is one of the most broken and infuriating experiences ever. The first time I booted this game up, it gave me a clear warning to stay away by only rendering a small part of the screen where you could see through walls. Nevertheless, I persisted. In Survival Instinct, you're trying to make your way to an army base, and you stop several times along the way in small towns to gather supplies and recruit other survivors. Every single mechanic in this game is complete garbage, so none of this is fun. For starters, the methods you're given to defend yourself are all made so you're at an inherent and illogical disadvantage to the walkers. You can stab the walkers in the head to insta-kill them from the back, but not the front. front, you can only do that if you get into these awful scripted sequences that were designed solely for controllers, where you have to line up the cursor to their heads as the entire screen shakes. In the same vein, you can hit walkers with various blunt objects, but you can't just target the head to destroy it. Sometimes you hit them in the chest, and they drop dead, which makes no sense. It should be mentioned that, as terrible as all this is, it's significantly worse on PC because the mouse is bugged. Even if you turn off aim assist, which comes on by default, the mouse still snaps to random objects. And I really mean random objects. Objects with no importance will have a certain magnetic pull to them, and when you couple that with the game's irremovable mouse acceleration, you end up with a jank fest where you literally cannot control your actions, making it impossible to do anything. If you can stomach all this and continue to play, you'll realize that the survival system is just terrible, because you go through all this trouble to get them in your party, and then you send them to get supplies, and they come back an inch from death with a single ration or very little fuel. It's unbelievable how bad this game is, but it doesn't end there. There's segments where you have to use your guns, so ammo conservation is out the window. There's routes you can take in your car which have predetermined stops, making fuel conservation impossible, and all of this because this is a linear game which has its survival mechanics fisted into it like you would stuff a turkey's ass on Thanksgiving. But my favorite is this bug I found. This game is so lazy that I actually got caught in a loop where the zombies kept spawning behind me as soon as I looked away from their spawn point.
Silent type, buddy.
Nothing to do but wait.
What's your name?
V.
Let me tell you something, V. That sack of filth took the life of someone I love. I can't live with the thought that... There they are! Step on it!
Remember where it was? I do, sir. We'll run and grab it.
Stay on him! Don't let him get away!
I have a long history with Aliens Colonial Marines. I've called it the worst first-person shooter ever released, and it looks like it's time for me to explain why I think that again.
Watch out!
I'll preface this by saying that I think it's the worst first-person shooter from a major studio. I've played several independent shooters that are far worse, but that's either because they were made by complete amateurs, or in the case of something like Psychotoxic, the game clearly isn't complete. Colonial Marines is another game that should have been outright canceled, and I'm sure at some point it probably was, with it taking around 6 years to finally see store shelves. The final product is not only a disgrace to its licensed property and source material, but also one of the worst showcase of mechanics ever. It's really no wonder Sega had to lie about this game to sell it. Colonial Marines certainly isn't a complex game, but it did take me a while to figure out why I hated the game so much from a mechanical perspective the first time I played it. The tutorial mission is plagued with random occurrences that you don't identify as gameplay staples until you're well into at least the third mission. For example, one of the infamously horrible things about this game is how you seem to have a higher priority to the xenomorphs than your squad mates, and they will, to their own detriment, target you specifically.
Stop the damn car!
Dogpiling you until
Break,
you're
I
dead.
said! Break!
Xenomorphs will stagger you and sometimes pull you into ridiculous scripted sequences. The sound it makes when they rip off your armor is the worst sound effect.
Stay close, I'm gonna blow the motherfucker to bits myself.
And it plays constantly.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna fucking kill him!
I don't know why someone associated that sound with armor, but to me it sounds like you're being lit on fire. This is a noise you're hearing constantly, because even if the Xenos don't melee you, their blood
Stop
will
right
also
there!
enter your armor. Every single
Lieutenant
gunfight in
Vasquez,
this game
SCPD,
with
stop right
considerably
there!
less armor
You're
and
protecting a
powerful impact
murderer!
going
Drop
into
it or I
it,
shoot!
even if you land every shot, because there's no way to reliably avoid
Stop the
damage.
killing!
Of
They're
course,
here to
you're
kill
not
you.
going to be hitting every single
It's
shot
not their
because
fault.
this game's gunplay is
Shoot the girl,
broken.
and our
With
deal is
every
dead.
weapon, your aim shifts around, leading you to miss shots that you should be landing.
just
You
all
can be
shoot
standing
holes in each other.
perfectly still, and the weapon still sways, which means you lose accuracy
No, leave her
no
here.
matter what.
Media
This
vultures will
is
be here
an
any minute.
intentional
What are you
mechanic,
doing?
and this was
Stop.
explained to me by Templar GFX,
NCPD,
the creator
stay
of
where
the
you
MCM
are, and get that
overhaul
goddamn
in my
semi
original
outta here.
Marines video. Quote,
We take her
some
with us.
smart Spark and Gearbox thought it would be
What?
a good idea to add what they term weapon wandering, which is the simulation
no
of you
thanks.
not being
Just
able
beyond
to
my
hold
range.
gun still when aiming
Please.
because
Somebody
you sway.
just tried to drop
But
off
this
a
system only
That
wanders
sucks
the
about hiring
weapon.
professionals.
Hence the
It was
name,
only a
not
matter
your
of time.
viewpoint. This is why the red dot
answer
sight
is
is so
no.
far away
Busted
from
an
where
Now
attempted
can we
kill
go?
of a guy.
to compound this,
Yeah,
bullets
one
do
cash.
not come out of your
Build
gun.
up, Johnson.
They come out of the
No
character
priors,
at
but
the
run a
aim
deep
point.
sweep just to be
These
sure.
two systems cannot be used together for the
Thanks,
reasons on
I owe
display
you.
in ACM.
No patrol car,
I
and stay off the
removed this
frequencies too.
feature
Can't have this coming
from my
back.
mod. I originally thought the hit detection was just not working, but he cleared that up as well. Quote, there is not actually any problem with the hit detection. It is entirely caused by the above weapon
We're
lock.
clear to go.
At
Boys in the
long
precinct
range,
will mop
even
up.
just wandering a few pixels means your aim is off by meters. Only the weapon wanders, not the camera or firing point. So you adjust the camera to bring the sight in line with your target, but all you've done is move the firing point away from the target. You can't see the firing point when aiming. Absolutely terrible. I couldn't have said that any better myself. When you make a first-person shooter, and the shooting aspect of the game doesn't work, your game is garbage. I have never encountered this level of incompetence with any other major release because almost everything terrible about this game is intentional. Another good example of this is the boiler seals you encounter midway through the game. This is supposed to be a stealth section, and making sound attracts the boilers, which explode and kill you. I remember how busted this segment seemed when I first encountered the game. GFX, once again, had a good explanation. Quote, they are programmed to ignore you if you crouch. Stupid. Alien Colonial Marines is so atrocious that when recording capture for this game, I had to quit playing. It was so bad that if I played a single second more, I would have lost my mind. Likewise, if I have to keep talking about this game, I will also lose my mind. So let's just move on. Rambo, the video game, is a more traditionally bad game. It doesn't have many bugs, there's no horrendous mechanics, it's just a game that is not in the right genre, and probably a property that shouldn't have been adapted in this medium to begin with. Rambo is a rail shooter that adapts the first 3 Rambo films, quite terribly adapts them for various reasons. The game clearly had very little money, so it rips its audio straight from the films, but because of that lack of money, it doesn't have the scope necessary to properly bring its worlds to life. What this leads to is a butchering of the stories, First Blood specifically, where it will cut off sequences or just not give the proper context for them, which makes every scene hilarious. In this scene here, Rambo is supposed to have a PTSD flashback of being tortured in Vietnam, but they didn't animate that, so he just starts screaming like a pterodactyl for no
I could probably
apparent
use your help.
reason.
Probably.
I could really use your help. Can we meet?
Even the scenes that are visually adapted one-to-one are terrible because the audio mixing
tell
is
me when and
horrible,
when.
and you can't
You
hear
don't know how
any
good
of
it is to hear that. Swing by the Aldecaldos camp. I'll explain it all.
Yeah, the calendar. Thought you parted ways.
Look, it's a long story. Just hurry over. I'm here.
Every character in the game looks like a gelatin version of their real-life counterparts. Rambo himself looks